Okay, last we checked, Dante and the Damned Dozen were keeping ahead of the walls that threatened them with elimination. Once they had some time to catch their breath, as the walls stopped closing in on them, for now, Heathcliff wanted to give the host a fist to her face before they left that place. Dante regretted not doing cardio with them. Their legs were screaming at them to take a seat and rest, but they simply didn't have the time to sit still, telling them that they have no choice but to keep running. Yi Sang understood that the place must not have offered much diversion for a child, asking if it was drab or tedious. Honglu replied by saying that his grandmother really knew a lot about boluses. Every time he was there, he would always watch her take command of the room, fiercely bringing about a storm of directions and orders for the researchers. So it wasn't drab or tedious. Then he paused. Yi Sang caught on to this. Honglu then thought about this, and whenever she summoned him to visit that place together, he thought that he felt a bit of happiness. Sinclair wanted to know why. Just as Honglu was about to speak of this, Uruti suddenly came to a stop, raising her fist and motioned in a way that caught everyone's attention. Gregor understood this to mean that there's, someone was seen up ahead, which she confirmed, hoping that she's a candidate who has been separated from her clan, seeing this as easy coins, if that's the case. Yes, she was clearly at home in this situation. But Honglu told her that it's not a cause for worry. He knew her. She was not one of the candidates. She was Lin Dayu. Urtis identified her as a bodyguard of a Zui family candidate. Yes, a Zui family candidate. Honglu asked why she was there by herself. He was just thinking of her. This surprised her briefly. Then she hardened her expression, understanding that she must have alarmed them all, apologizing for this. The walls came out of nowhere. Her inattentiveness separated her from the rest of her clan. Ishmael asked if she had no idea where the rest of her clan or her candidate was. Lin Dayu didn't know. Sinclair spoke of if a different candidate found her there alone. Lin Dayu finished that sentence by answering that they'd attempt to eliminate her, even though she's just a follower. It would have been beneficial to do so. Well, thankfully you've met Dante and the Damned Dozen then. Honglu asked Lin Dayu if she's been waiting for her all this time, waiting for the one that she's following to return. She was. Urtis saw this as a foolish belief. The arena was constantly shrinking. They wouldn't take the risk of coming back there just to pick up a straggler. Lin Dayu conceded that she had a point. This made things awkward quickly. Lin Dayu understood that Honglu had an advantage over the other candidates. He was more familiar with that place than anyone else. Honglu was silent at this. Lin Dayu noted this. It was just like when he refused to tell her anything to the end, in all those years that she was in his service after the almost complete annihilation of the Kong family. Then we flashed back to the past when Lin Dayu wanted Jiabayu to come over there. She asked what happened now. He looked so glum again, asking if they're still going to play the game that he likes that day, offering to beat up the meanies with her new move, if they're back at it again, asking if they're still going to play. Well, Jiabayu told her that won't be necessary. He doesn't get why they say those things about him. He still wants to be their friend. Then a nervous individual asked him if he knew where Jiamu was. He replied that she'll be at the lab for a little while. This individual saw this as bad, as they had something to tell her. It was urgent. They needed more boluses to maintain that body. But she wouldn't return any attempts to reach her, so they decided to pay her a visit. Then what appears to be a claw appeared and tore them apart, not caring about traumatizing Jiabayu, who clearly was being traumatized by this. He asked if that individual was okay. Then Dayu understood enough to tell him to get behind her. He's definitely not from Hongguan. Then Jiamu explained why the claw killed her. It was because she didn't discard her clone for over a week. So that law isn't specific to Arcor. If any has more than one of the same iteration of an individual living for over a week, that's reason enough for a claw to hunt them down and kill them. Apparently, she warned her that either the clone with the cloned brain or the original must be discarded within a week of production. Apparently, she couldn't bear to relinquish that new body of hers, unburdened by ailments of both body and mind. Jiabayu asked if there was anything that could be done for her. Jiamu didn't think so, as the head will not suffer those who have broken their taboos to live. The omnipresent terror that, they cast over them. They're always watching, always primed to appear no matter where you are, even as you eat, even as you slumber, even as you wed. Circumstance or context means nothing to them. Yes, circumstance or context. Well, if the taboo is broken, they'll hunt you down and kill you. Almost as if they're executors of the natural law. Yeah, we get it. They're followers of social Darwinism. Excessive cruelty is their trademark. Yet, they're not as omnipresent as they appear, because if that was true, then they would have sent more than one arbiter and one claw to finish off the library. They also wouldn't have found the outskirts lab with Ian and Benjamin, without the help of their informant, Michelle. They likely focus on the cases that are most worth their time, as it doesn't matter how overpowered they are, even they can't be everywhere at once. Their resources, their resources are stretched pretty thin. She then told Jiabayu that they should leave there. Then Dayu told Jiabayu not to touch her, the one that was killed, believing her to be dead, as she's not breathing. Well, considering that a claw did something that wouldn't look out of place in Mortal Kombat, it would take either very specific cybernetics or a healing factor to survive that. He pointed out that her eyes were open. He wanted to help close her eyes. It would be too cruel and sad for her to be all alone, even in her final moments. Yes, her final moments looking at that lonely place. Then Dayu told him that they can come there every day. He told her that his grandmother brings him there every day anyway. It's going to happen whether he wants to or not. Why would she say such a thing? It's because whenever she sees him, she sees the face of someone who is ready to leave this world forever. Clearly something happens in there that is about as bad as what's happened in front of them. She made him promise that he won't leave her alone there. She's just as scared of that place as he is. It felt too big, too vast. But just thinking about playing with him, flying kites with him, it makes her feel a bit better. Sometime later, Jamu and Jabayu were in a palanquin in transit. The bells heralded the restructuring day. According to Jamu, this was the case, and Jabayu hated these days and the sound of the bells, likely because they're heralds of doom. Then Jamu shows herself to be a typical wing executive, seeing this is not her problem, as she told him that it won't touch them as Dagyuan 1 only expands, never shrinking, as the homes of the poor do. He then asked her if Dagyuan 1 can change. She then asked what prompted this question. It's because he wanted Dagyuan 1 to... Then something happened. Then he reached out from the palanquin as the people evicted from their rooms fell from the sky. He asked if they were okay. He told the bearer to stop the palanquin. Either it relies on anti-grav tech or, well, anti-grav tech like the G-Corp gravity spheres, or the bearers are augmented enough to bear the strain. Jabayu wanted them to stop and help him to pull those up that's going to fall. The bearer was struggling to make it clear that they were following Jamu's orders primarily. Although, well, it's apparently too late for the one falling, seeing this as nothing that can be done. Jabayu asked how can he turn a blind eye and pass him by like nothing happened. He's right there in pain, asking to help him pull him up. Jamu told him that he can't save him, let alone everyone, believing that if he can't save everyone, it's wiser to not try at all. This gaslighting isn't as effective as it might appear, as he knows that he can't save everyone, but Jamu then shows herself for the functional psychopath that she is, telling him that he struggles to move past this during the last restructuring day as well, asking if his struggle had managed to save even a single life. He admitted that it didn't, although that's largely because he wasn't allowed to even try. Jamu told him to try it, then, seeing that it would be much better for him to learn this lesson early. We see Ja Q briefly, and this distracted Jabayu. Jamu asked what was it. Jabayu thought that he must have been mistaken, as he thought that he saw someone watching him. Then once they snapped back to reality, then Dayu stumbled before leaning on the wall. She didn't know what to make of these visions of the memories that she never wished to see again. Dante was surprised to see that too. Rodia asked Lin Dayu if she saw that as well. She confirmed this, even if she didn't understand how this was possible. Faust suspected that this was another feature of the previously discussed expansion of Dante's abilities. Dante asked if it was now possible to show the past of the damned dozen to those that aren't them, and it's out of control? Faust didn't think that it could be easily dismissed, but it's unlikely to activate with no discernible pattern. There must be a condition that must first be met. Sinclair wanted to know what that could be, as Wang Zhao was unaffected. Faust suspected a possible connection can be drawn to the rising level of emotions. The visions, even when they activated for the others, were brought on by certain emotional triggers. Individuals that were part of a powerful memory that caused the emotional state to, drastically spike could trigger a resonance effect. Dante likely suspected that it was something to do with Lin Dayu having a connection to Honglu, which Honglu likely suspected, as he understood that that he ended up leaving her all alone in Dagyuan Yuan in spite of her pleading. Seeing her resentment as justified, the strain on her was clear. She told him that this wasn't what she wanted to hear. He refused to tell her anything about what happened there on that day. His only response? A smile. Honglu had nothing to say about this, and she sees that hasn't changed. Dante saw that Honglu's only solace in visiting those labs is the time he spent with Lin Dayu. After that day, he wasted his days away, locking himself within the bounds of Dagyuan Yuan, never leaving it. Not even once. When asked why, he only gave a smile, while not giving a answer. Until one day, he said that he'd be leaving Dagyuan Yuan. She also told him that he wasn't the only one who lost those important to them on the day of the annihilation of the Kong family, asking if he ever truly cared about anyone to begin with. Dante saw that her questions were sharp and formed, but Honglu made no attempts at making excuses or denying her accusations. He made it clear that he sees that she has suffered much worse than he has, so much that he can't even begin to imagine this. But even if she was to learn everything that happened, what will that knowledge do to heal her pain? He saw that suffering, that joy is just moments, bound to be lost in time. Trying to catch what is destined to slip away will only bring pain to her. Yeah, Jiamu turned him into a straw nihilist. Lin Dayu was aware of this. What she couldn't bear was, it's just, what happened to him that... She then apologized. She lost herself for a moment, seeing it as improper of her to show such emotion to a candidate who is not her master, nor is he a relative, asking him to excuse her impudence. Gregor was sorry for bringing this up in the middle of a serious conversation, but shouldn't she think that they should get going? Faust told them that enough time has passed. The walls will likely invade that space soon. Honglu invited Lin Dayu to come with them, if she wanted to, at least until they ran into Zui Baichai. She asked if this was pity. Honglu denied this. It was because that place was too dangerous to be alone. She then asked if she travels with them, will she see more of those bizarre visions? Honglu can't answer that, as that's Dante's power, not his. He recommended against going through more of them, but he won't stop her. She then asked him to excuse her intrusion, she will try not to be a burden to him. From this point onwards, Lin Daiyu will be an ally. She will assist in battles. She likely wanted to see those, more visions like that, as she likely wanted an explanation to why Honglu was like what he was now. And considering that Jiamu was a functional psychopath, and still is, who is not above gaslighting her own grandson, caring not for the troubles of others, what Honglu was forced to see, it was likely something that was too traumatic to speak of. And I have a good idea of what happened that day, based on what's known so far. Lin Daiyu might be an ally of Limbus Company, but she can't be controlled. She has a mix of rupture infliction and gaining poise. She is armed with a spear. She specializes in piercing her enemies. She gains base power if her target has 3 or more negative effects. One of her attacks grants her protection. Quite fitting for a bodyguard. Her guard also reflects this, as her guard removes 1 negative effect from herself and heals 10 SP. She also gains 2 protective stuns, which grants more protection and draws attention from her enemies, making others lesser targets. She uses Weakness Thrust as an unopposed attack 2 times a turn when an ally deals damage by striking an enemy. She uses Aiding Strike as an unopposed attack once per encounter, when an enemy attacks an ally and if the ally is less than 25% HP. She also gains 1 defense level up for every 3 poise, up to 6, and on a kill, 10 SP is healed for 2 allies with the least SP. She's weak against blunt, but strong against pierce. As they kept moving, Ishmael saw a suspicious-looking door to the side, asking if they should check what's inside it. Dante asked what they should do. Heathcliff asked Ishmael, the self-appointed class president. Ishmael thought about it and then decided to head right in. On the other side of it was something that wouldn't be out of place around a certain Batman villain that has no problems with killing or bringing suffering to those that despoil nature, often involving making plants do her bidding. It didn't take long for Ishmael to go, "Nope," and close the door. Dante didn't know what they saw. Roger saw this as a good choice. They should pretend like nothing happened, turn around and keep walking. Otis wanted to know what happened. Ishmael didn't expect that. Dante asks if they can move on like nothing happened, or is it a case of no backstays? Then the host answered this without understanding Dante, mentioning that they, although not by name, have bravely opened a mysterious door. Yes, a mysterious door, only to immediately slam it shut in fear. Not wanting to name those that displayed this embarrassing display of spinelessness, but she'll give them a chance to rectify this. Don Quixote told Dante that they must open the door again to prove the host wrong. Yes, prove the host wrong. Running up to the door in panic. Dante noted that they saw something pretty ugly in there, but it wasn't an abnormality or distortion. They didn't feel anything like that around there. Roger believed that this almost made it worse. Ishmael suspected that the host was making goofy commentary on them, but each thing that she said had some truth to it. She wanted to check what was inside. They won't know what's waiting for them in there unless they face it. Then she was confident enough to open the door. Massault saw the same kind of coin that they received at the start, hanging from the neck of what they saw in that room. Dante saw that his observation skills were serving him well. Sinclair asked why was it wearing a coin. Gregor understood that they can gain that coin by beating it to death. Then, what they were seeing was speaking, "We deserve only to repent, an eternal repentance. We desire only to repent, an eternal repentance." This mantra was desperate and hopeless. Honglu confirmed that they weren't abnormal beings. Ishmael reminded him that was what Dante said, waiting for Honglu to say specifically what they were. He told them that they were people, Hongguan's condemned. Lin Dayu didn't have enough time to speak of this, as the condemned howled madly as they charged at them. Then they fought the condemned. The experimental test subjects left to suffer in the ruins of the Kong family building. They deal rupture, and the impaled failure gets clash power if there's enough on the target. They also have a chance of gaining defense level up and heal by the amount of that on a target, up to 10%, and they have a guard equal to 10% of their maximum HP. The defense level up is gained based on how much they're hit, up to 10, and when they're staggered, they gain 10 defense level down. They're weak to gloom and to a lesser extent gluttony and pride, but strong against lust and sloth. The entangled failure gains an unbreakable third coin when at 50% HP or less, and there's a chance to reuse that third coin. Well, with that attack. It also counters when brought down to 0 HP once. It goes to 1 HP and deals 50% more damage, but this doesn't activate if staggered. It's weak to wrath and to a lesser extent gluttony and pride, but it's strong against lust and sloth. After that fight and the condemned were given a mercy killing, the coins hanging from their necks clattered to the ground. The host pointed out that, as many candidates must have realized by now, there's more than one way to obtain coins. Other ways are battles in special rooms. She then announced that another candidate had obtained some coins, but the host's enigmatic voice wasn't enough to distract Dante and the others from how disturbed they were by what Honglu said. Yisang asked Honglu what the implication of calling them the condemned is. Honglu told them that years ago the elders told him of many old fables and legends. One of them was, then a rooster's crest was grafted on over the visage, a goat's hooves between the legs, and an elm tree's branches extend from the arms. This closer Daguan Yuan grows to boundless eternity. Yisang was figuring this out and asked if it was experiments regarding expansion of the bolus technology. Honglu didn't see the experiments himself, but he once heard that there's a laboratory beneath even the basements of Daguan Yuan, built to research secretive and valuable boluses. Otis understood this to mean that they experimented on these prisoners. She didn't see this as a unique practice among the wings. Lin Dayu believed that the smallest speck of greed lies at the origin of all misfortune. Well, she's not wrong, as once it starts, there's a possibility that it won't end. She also didn't believe that the definition of immortality that Hong Yuan originally sought was the same as the one that they seek now. Again, not wrong, considering that as far back as at least 200 years ago, fixers fought more for honor than material wealth, while now, it's all about being self-serving. Honglu didn't know what to say. Then we had a vision of the past. Lin Dayu asked what took Jia Bayu so long. He apologized for this, as his grandmother's experiments went on for longer than planned. Then Jia Bayu's brother appeared, as he saw that as so cool. He wanted to see what they did in there, not seeing it as fair that he's the only one who gets to go in there. He's a fast learner too. Jia Bayu told him that he doesn't go in there to learn anything. His brother then asked how come. Apparently he's just there to watch. His brother found this to be weird. It's not like he has to work for anything like they do to have a nice life, believing that it's because he's the precious jade of the family. Lin Dayu then identifies him as Jia Huan, and angrily told him not to say stuff like that, threatening to demonstrate some new moves that she learned yesterday. Jia Huan nervously apologized for this, vowing not to do this again. She then told them that they're going to play a ball game. How it works is that they'll kick a ball to each other. The one who lasts the longest without dropping the ball wins. Jia Bayu asked, what was the point in playing a game like that? Then Dayu replied by saying that it's because it's fun. Jia Huan wanted to play a bolus-making game, where it involved gathering a bunch of sand, pebbles, leaves, and seeds to make a bolus, and the best bolus wins. Lin Dayu says no. She's from the Lin family, and they're from the Jia family. Noble families shouldn't play nerdy games like that one. Jia Huan asked if Jia Bayu wants to play with them. Then the older male told Jia Huan that as much as he wanted to play with them, Lin Dayu wouldn't let him play, due to her giving him an earful about the rules if he is dragged into that game, asking if that's so. Lin Dayu asked if Jia Huan was trying to pull out of that game. She agreed to play the bullet-making game after the ball game. The next day, they'll play whatever Jia Bayu's favourite game is, asking how that plan is. Jia Bayu told them that he's good with anything. Lin Dayu asked what he wants, telling him that when they meet the next day, he'd better come up with something he likes. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, Kong Yojin told Jamu that he understood that he might be letting the impatience get the better of him, but he was asking how certain was she about the plan they wheeled. Yet even in the olden days, there have been but 12 branches of them. And that is what maintains that stalemate between the great families. The Haishu are the shadow of Dagyuan Ruan, its most dexterous and capable limbs, yet they have their failings. An immense physical cost follows their explosive strength. Even if you wield a Haishu pack, it's difficult to expand their numbers, as their population is strictly controlled by the Haishu Zhanren of each branch. None could even attempt to create a new branch due to the Haishu Zanren concealing their unique bolus recipes. Yet she's wise in the ways of bolus making and armed with the Zanren's insight. With help from the Kong family, this is certainly a viable endeavor. The Kong family once led the forefront of the city's medical sciences with their bioengineering achievements. Yet now, he must know his family's place in the city is quite precarious. She spoke of developments in easier treatments, better modifications, superior singularities, arising from all corners of the city. At first they were only subjects of study and research. But through various applications, many of them are now entering the stages of mass commercialization. She saw H Corp's declining status. Well, if this continues, to the point where it might lead to another wing war. Yeah, it's clear when the vultures were circling. When weakness is detected, they'll exploit it ruthlessly. She pointed out that Hongguan hides many valuable secrets. They're often passed down from generation to generation. Certain areas within the territory even lead into the ruins. Many wings even consider them to be a treasure chest to be cracked open. For the city to fear Hongguan, to fear the Kong family, he has to wield absolute power, which is what a new Haishu branch with mass production capabilities could provide. Kong Yojin asked her to keep this a secret from his wife. He wants the experiment's success to be a happy surprise for her. He received news from the doctors that they managed to conceive a child. If they coincide that event with the discovery of that new auspicious path towards what was considered an impossibility, wouldn't it be a happy cause for Dagyuan Yuan? No, Hongguan to rejoice. If she needs assistance, materials, or people, she simply has to say the word and the Kong family will provide, asking if she can keep this between them. She agreed to do so. She would also prepare a special bolus to celebrate the birth of a new life. He then left, and when he was out of earshot, Jiamu then brought her attention to Jia Bayu, telling him that it's a good time to return him for the day. He asked her why she looked so happy that day. Jiamu then demonstrated how two-faced she truly was, saying that the doltish fish snagged the bait that she was preparing for a long time. Her offer was seen by her as too tantalizing for them to let past. She believed that the Kong family's overconfidence remained a marker on their bloodline, believing that they did well to hide it under a veil of generosity, believing that one's nature can't be overcome. Jia Bayu didn't want to speak about this. Then she told him that they needed to hurry. The revered Jianren, or the elders, awaited them. I believe that Niccolo Machiavelli put it in a way that applies to this situation. Act against mercy, against faith, against humanity, against frankness, against religion, in order to preserve the state, which in this context means that Jiamu is willing to do anything to maintain her own power, even destroy what she sees as a potential rival, even if that generosity is more than just a veil. She clearly wasn't the kind to take chances. I wouldn't be surprised if she read up on that. It's a manual on how to be a morally questionable ruler at best, relying on flexible morality, deceit, and manipulation to not only take power, but to maintain it and even expand on it. if possible, even if The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli along with Das Kapital by Karl Marx was thrown into the concept incinerator, it'd likely be come up by others as some kind of unofficial rule book for despots, tyrants, and dictators. Hubert, the one in charge of District 20, is one of the few that are still alive that actually cares about his district beyond profit margins and worker productivity. Back in the present, Lin Dayu was less interested in the treachery of Jiamu, but more into remembering the ball game. She remembered that Honglu won that. It was the first time that he beat her in a game that required physicality. She remembered being covered head to toe in sand, likely in an attempt to get to the ball in time. Jia Huan whined about that little scratch on his head. Well, hand. Yes, the little scratch on his hand. Honglu thought about that and agreed that they did. Dante saw that it seemed that long ago for him. This was annoying to Lin Dai. She asked what the 13th branch was, asking if it had anything to do with that taboo that was broken. Honglu told her that much time had passed since then, but regardless of the question or the reply, it won't be what she wants. She told him that it wasn't for him to decide. He asked her if she'll never find what she seeks, so why even try to gain it, and for what? It's why he replied that her questions were meaningless and why he did nothing more than observe. Lin Dayu decided not to speak of this for now, understanding that if she stays with them long enough, she'll find out. Dante then asked him if he's okay with them all seeing those memories. Honglu then tilted his head by the side curiously, as though he didn't understand why they'd ask such a question. Honglu didn't see it as mattering as to whether he's okay with it or not. It was just unfamiliar. It wasn't a memory that he wanted to forget, nor did he want to recall. The emotions that he felt were so distant from him now. He felt like he was looking down at them from somewhere so high up. So he doesn't know what to say to a question like, "Are you okay?" Because there's nothing more to change. Dante had nothing to answer to this. Yi Sang then gathered from those memories that it was Jiamu who first made the suggestion of researching the 13th Haishu branch. Masot added that it was the mutual desire of the Kong family. Ishmael didn't see them driven mad by greed like the plaque suggested. They had ambition, that much was confirmed. Sinclair had a feeling that they truly wished the best for Hong Yuan. Then Dayu revealed that she was close to a number of those within the Kong family, and she came to realize that being close to 30, that it was exceedingly rare to find a leader who was generous in both character and temper, where most refused to give any other than themselves a chance. Everyone was so blinded to everything but their immediate profit and interests. But the people of the Kong family, at least the ones that she remembered, sought to give others a chance, at the very least. The Lin family was insignificant, but by their support they could become a family of guards because they were selected by merits rather than birth. But once the Kong family was almost eradicated, every other family, other than the main four, lost any means of upward mobility. So when she heard that they were simply gone, all because they were blinded by greed, or at least the narrative would put it that way, it felt crushing. Even as a child, it was devastating because she no longer had any place to return to. Gregor saw that she'd been dealt a heavy hand, seeing it as hard out there. Dante understood that despite this, the family hierarch war was still going on. So they moved on from that area, away from the rising walls. History is written by the victors, but history is full of liars. I can see it as this. The Kong family were more generous and meritocratic than most, and some, like Jamu, saw this as weakness at best, and a potential threat to her power at worst, where it wasn't the greed of the Kong family that was their downfall. It was the plotting of Jamu that destroyed them. All for her own greed for power, and her unwillingness to share it with anyone. The hypocrisy is either lost on her, or it wasn't and she simply didn't care. As long as she was still the one in charge, that was all that mattered. More condemned in Pekatula were fought as they moved through the ruins. More events could be taken part in. And there was at least one that was optional. In the south, there was only one event that needed to be passed through. They encountered some that recognized Honglu. They got separated from their faction when the wall suddenly burst from the ground. Some were still with him, but they won't get very far like that, asking if they could help to get to the rest of his faction. If they help them out today, he'll look out for him when he becomes the next family hierarch, asking for him to help him out. If the worn entry card is handed over, assuming that it was gained, Dante didn't see any reason to pick a fight with him, so they handed over a used entry card. Apparently they picked up something like that, but it was pretty useless. Exchanging it for a red entry card, they hoped the worn one was better. He also gave them the Heavenly King's heart-mending pill bolus from another candidate, telling them that they won't go easy on them next time. Advising them to watch themselves. That bolus gives 10 SP to one ally with the least SP. If Dante chose to fight them, however, they consider that they don't have to fight them, but they suggested that the others beat the out of them and take the coins. They don't have to help him either. The damned dozen were all for this. The Shi candidate had an inflated sense of self-importance, seeing himself as the eminent Shi family's. But they started to pummel him before he could finish, and after defeating the Shi forces, they gained 3 more coins. On a different path, there were several talismans glued to the wall. Dante could feel the wind blowing through the barely visible cracks on the wall. One of them said, "Seems like there's something on the other side. Maybe there's a hidden pathway there. Or rather, passageway." Each of the damned dozen took a moment to investigate the room, and found a wall with conspicuously arranged talismans of different colours. Don Quixote likely said, "Ooh, these must be colours that match each of the cardinal directions." Another of them said, "Looks like we'll have to peel these talismans in the correct order." Now, if the wrong talisman was peeled off, the wall stopped shaking, But something felt off, and right on cue, the host's vibrant voice begins blasting from the speakers. Contestants who failed the puzzle should be punished, don't you think? There was a sound of wooden things clattering, and some doors would swing open as wooden dummies would rush out and they'd be forced to fight them. But if they chose the red talisman in the north, the wall shook with greater intensity. Then the yellow in the center, which continued shaking, and this would also occur when, after that, with the white talisman in the east being peeled off, and once the black talisman in the south was peeled off, a new path would be opened, and 2 coins were also obtained. They then entered a new room and saw a bound prisoner next to a bolus on the table. There they saw a candidate standing around as though they've been walking into that room recently, waiting for someone to arrive. Then the host said, now we have enough people for this special game to commence. Please direct your attention to the bolus on the table. Observe it well. It is a bolus currently in development here at H-Core. It is yet to be commercialized or, put forward for mass market use. Apparently, it can help restore your vitality once taken. But let's see how true that is, shall we? Do you think this is indeed a successful new product, or is it a failure? Now is the time to place your bets of your coins. Guess, is it a success or a failure? The candidate who gets this question right gains all the coins in the pool. If Dante chose that was whatever choice Dante chooses, the other will bet on the other choice. So if Dante chose success, the other would bet on it being a failure. If gambling isn't seen as worth it, the host will say, "Oh no, was this little gamble too scary for you? It might be a bit tough to navigate this game going forward with such a wimpy heart." Gambling always carries a risk. They left the room, leaving the prisoner and the other candidate behind. Now, I see that as a wise choice, considering that if 1 coin was wagered, the success chance would be 60%. It'd be 50% if 2 coins were wagered, and 40% if 3 coins was wagered. And if the gamble fails, the candidate would say, well, it depends on what the definition of failure is. As if the bolus was a failure, the candidate would say, "Alrighty, let's see what happens then." The prisoner swallows the bolus and immediately begins screaming with pain. He drops to the floor unconscious after wildly writhing and thrashing around for a minute. The host would say, "Ooh, what a shame, it was a failure." The candidate who bet on this being a failure would gain all the coins, while if they bet on success, they'd need to submit their coins. However, if the bolus was a success, then the condemned would swallow the bolus, but they would look to be at peace. They would wait a bit longer, and the flower growing from the prisoner would grow to be more vibrant. The candidate would say, "How wonderful! The bolus was a success, it seems." And the host would say, "The candidate who bet on it being a success would gain the coins," while the candidate who bet on it being a failure would submit their coins. Yes, if the bet was won, the coins wagered would be gained. If the bet was lost, then the coins would be lost. As far as I'm concerned, the best way to win at gambling is not to gamble at all. A different event led to 3 condemned unable to move, never mind attack them. one speaking a hollow lamentation, the other yearned in an empty desire. One is a moon on the water's surface, a reflection, and the other is a blossom's image in the mirror. Flowers have bloomed over the bodies of the prisoners. Dante didn't see any movement. It looked like they were all dead. One of them said, "These flowers possess the augmentative qualities of H-core." Another noted, "This will most likely provide some advantage in the battles to come. Most likely Utis. As for which flower to pick, if the lotus is chosen, it is picked and it turns into a small bolus and the other flowers bloom in the mirror." They let the prisoners rest in peace, and they moved on after paying respects to the dead. The flower in the mirror artifact inflicts free rupture and count to all enemies without rupture, on all parts with focused encounters. The tranquil Lotus Bolus heals 5% HP for one ally with the least HP, rounded down. If the red spider lily is chosen, the same happens except they gain the sanguine Blossom Bolus with the flower in the mirror, which grants a damage bonus for one ally that has lost HP. This is a percentage that is the missing HP percentage divided by 4, rounded down. So if 20% HP is missing, then that's a 5% damage bonus. If the nameless herb is chosen, the same happens again. The flower in the mirror is gained, and the tenacity bolus is also gained, which grants one ally with the highest HP a bonus to defense level up equal to the number of times that they were hit by the enemy, up to 6 times. After that, whichever is chosen, on the way through they also encountered blooming failures. They deal rupture, like the other 2 condemned, but healed an ally with the least HP by 5% of the maximum HP. It can also evade attacks, which can inflict rupture count. It also heals 80% of missing HP if not at max HP, which grows less effective each time it happens, halving each time until it becomes 10% minimum, and only applies heals more than 1 HP, and if staggered, it doesn't work at all. And when healing is at minimum, or is staggered for the first time, it gains 3 fragile each turn from that point onwards. It's weak to envy, and to a lesser extent gluttony and pride, but strong against lust and sloth.
Quite eventful so far, isn't it? Until next time. Hail the rabbit!